This is a true story from back when I was a senior in high school. It started during summer vacation. My friends, Aoi, Benny, Chisato, and I came up with a spontaneous idea to go camping. One of Chisato's relatives was into mountain stream fishing, and he told us about a perfect spot deep in the woods by a river. But somewhere along the way, we took a wrong turn. We ended up at a different part of the river entirely, not the place we were looking for. Still, it looked like a good spot to camp. There was a thick, dark forest on the opposite bank, but our side was a clear, open area filled with small pebbles. It wasn't damp. It actually felt quite cozy. By evening, we were finishing up our setup. Aoi and Chisato had been wandering around nearby, and when they came back, they said, "Hey, just a bit further down on the other bank, there's a strange little hokora. These are tiny wayside shrines, often made of stone, built to house minor deities or protect travelers." Benny and I followed them to take a look. Sure enough, there was a small stone shrine on the other side, but something felt off about it. Usually, these shrines have a torii, those traditional red or wooden gates, standing in front of them, but this one didn't. Even the shape was wrong. Most hokora are square with gabled roofs, but this one was a perfect cylinder with a rounded top. From a distance, it looked like a shrine, but up close it felt like something else. At the base of it, we saw fresh flowers. They hadn't even started to wilt, which meant someone had been there very recently. It was bizarre because the shrine itself was ancient, completely covered in thick moss, and looked totally neglected. Yet there were those fresh flowers. We didn't think much more of it at the time and headed back to start dinner. As the sun began to set and we were cleaning up after eating, I suddenly heard a voice. I turned to Aoi, who was standing right next to me. "Did you say something?" "No, nothing," he replied. I asked Benny and Chisato, but they hadn't said a word either. I thought I was just hearing things, but then it came again. Everyone heard it that time. Benny asked, "What was that?" And suddenly Chisato pointed toward our side of the bank, right across from where the shrine stood. "Hey, someone's there!" In the shadows, we saw the silhouette of a young girl, maybe 10 or 12 years old, wearing a traditional kimono. She was holding both palms over her face, completely covering it, and every few seconds she would let out that sound. "This is creepy. Where are her parents?" Aoi muttered. He walked toward her and called out, "What are you doing here? It's getting dark. Go back to your parents." The girl didn't move her hands. She just giggled, a cold, thin sound, and asked, "Do you want to see? Do you want to see?" Aoi sounded annoyed. "Stop playing around and go home." He reached out, grabbed her wrists, and yanked her hands away from her face. His back was to us, so we couldn't see what was behind her hands. But the moment Aoi saw her face, he let out a strangled scream and collapsed to the ground, his body bucking in violent convulsions. The girl immediately covered her face again. She started walking toward the rest of us, still giggling, still whispering, "Do you want to see? Do you want to see?" We were terrified, but seeing Aoi like that was worse. We rushed to him. "Aoi, are you okay? Can you hear us?" He didn't answer. His body was just twitching. "Damn it, something's wrong with him," Chisato yelled. "What is wrong with this kid?" He looked like he was going to charge at the girl, but I grabbed him. Seeing what happened to Aoi, I knew if he looked at her, he'd be next. I convinced him we had to get Aoi into the tent first. As the three of us dragged Aoi inside, the girl just stood there, facing us, repeating that same phrase over and over. "Do you want to see? Do you want to see?" Inside the tent, Aoi's seizures finally stopped, but he was dead to the world. It was pitch black outside now. We realized we couldn't carry him down a narrow mountain trail in the dark. It was too dangerous. We tried to call the police, but even though we had a signal during the day, all our phones now said out of service. Every single one of them. We were trapped. We couldn't leave Aoi, but something terrifying was pacing outside. We could hear her. She whispered, right against the vinyl of the tent. Benny tried to speak to her through the fabric. Who are you? What did you do to Aoi? Did we do something to offend you? If we did, we're sorry. She didn't care. She just giggled. I knew we wouldn't survive the night just sitting there. I'm the fastest runner, I told them. The main road is about 2 kilometers away. Even in the dark, I can make it in 10 minutes. I'll get a signal there, or I'll flag down a car. They tried to stop me, but it was barely 8 p.m. We had 7 or 8 hours of darkness left, and the only thing between us and that thing was a thin layer of plastic. We made a deal. If I wasn't back in an hour, they would come looking for me. I stepped out of the tent. The voice was right in my ear. Do you want to see? Do you want to see? I flashed my light, and she was right there, less than a meter away. She started to move her hands. I wrenched my eyes away, stared at the ground, and bolted. I was making good time on the dirt road, thinking I might actually make it, when I saw a silhouette standing in the middle of the path up ahead. I shined my light. It was her. It was impossible. I had run 500 meters. There was no way she could have beaten me there. But there she was, giggling. Her hands began to move. I looked away and sprinted past her, focused only on reaching the paved highway. I saw the flash of headlights in the distance. The road was right there. Then, I slammed into the ground. Something had grabbed my ankle. I looked down, panicking, but there was nothing there. My leg was empty, yet I could feel it, a physical, powerful grip squeezing my ankle. I tried to kick it, but my foot just swung through empty air. It was an invisible hand. Then I heard it, from right behind my head. In a total frenzy, I forced myself up and dragged my leg forward. I was stumbling, falling, crawling, but I wouldn't stop. And then, for a fraction of a second, I saw it. I saw her face as she opened her hands. In that moment, a wave of despair and horror so pure hit me that I felt my consciousness simply start to fade out. But because it was only for a split second, I managed to stay awake. I crawled onto the asphalt and stood up, shaking. My head was spinning so hard it felt like my brain was turning over in my skull. I was gripped by a primal, sickening fear. I knew if I tried to take another step, with that invisible hand still pulling at my leg, I would fall and never get back up. Luckily, a truck was coming. I waved my arms like a madman. As the truck slowed down, I heard her voice one last time behind me. Too bad. How disappointing. The nausea finally took me, and I collapsed. I managed to tell the driver that my friends were still up the road and they needed help. Then, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. The driver had called the police and an ambulance. Aoi, Benny, and Chisato were all rescued. Aoi was in the same hospital as me, and he woke up around the same time I did. The truck driver actually came to visit me later. He told me something that chilled me to the bone. He said when he pulled over, he didn't see anyone else on that road but me. The police didn't believe a word of our story, and our parents just lectured us for being reckless. I guess you can't blame them. It sounds insane, but there's a postscript to this. Years later, I asked Aoi what he saw when he pulled her hands away. He told me that even though he was looking right at her, he has no memory of what her face looked like. He only remembers the feeling of absolute terror, the dizziness, and then the darkness. It's the same for me. I know I saw it, just for a second. But it's like that specific piece of my memory was surgically removed. I know I saw something, but I can't tell you what. We spent that whole summer trying to find out about that cylindrical shrine and the girl in the kimono. We found nothing. Even the locals who lived in that area for decades had no idea there was a shrine out there. And if no one knew it was there, then who was leaving the fresh flowers?